Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to take the deeply emotional, profoundly human experience of love and put it straight under the objective microscope of evolutionary biology. Discovering the concepts we're about to cover completely shifted how I think about my closest relationships. And honestly, I think it's going to do the exact same thing for you. We'll be breaking down a truly fascinating paper by João Carlos Holland de Barcelos from the Sociology International Journal. It gives us a completely fresh framework, essentially stripping away all the poetry and those familiar rom-com tropes to reveal the biological algorithms operating just beneath the surface of our most intimate bonds. So here is our roadmap for This Explainer. First, love as a genetic instinct. Second, parental love and protecting shared genes. Third, heterosexual love as quality control. Fourth, the paradox of homosexual love. And fifth, the social warrior hypothesis. Let's dive right in. Part 1. Love is a genetic instinct. We're reevaluating romance through Darwin's lens. What's really wild to think about here is the word automatically, because love is fundamentally an instinct. It operates automatically, without any conscious choice, learning, or teaching required. You don't decide to feel love, much like a mother isn't taught to love her newborn. It's a predisposition encoded directly into our brains by our ancestors. It's an involuntary reflex designed to keep us, or more accurately, our genes, alive in a highly competitive environment. Now, for this entire explainer to really click, we have to embrace what's often called the selfish gene perspective. A lot of folks mistakenly think evolution is all about perpetuating the species as a whole. It actually isn't. Your biology's only true relentless objective is immortalizing your specific genes. Every impulse of love we feel is essentially a survival mechanism for our DNA to leap successfully from one generation to the next. Moving on to Part 2, parental love and the mathematics of family affection. This concept brilliantly illustrates how our brains use a subconscious mathematical formula to distribute love based on genetic proximity. Think about it. You share about 50% of your genes with your children, 25% with your nephews, and so on. Your biological drive to protect directly mirrors that math. But there's a fascinating catch here, the adoption loophole. Adoption triggers the exact same biological rules without any actual shared DNA. Why? Because the brain doesn't have a built-in DNA sequencer. It relies on a rule of thumb. If you're caring for a child long-term, your biology simply assumes it's carrying your genes and triggers that love instinct. It's a beautiful biological workaround. All right, Part 3, heterosexual love as quality control. Selecting the ultimate gamete provider. There's a stark contrast between our cultural ideals and our biology. Culturally, we have this ideal of finding a soulmate for lifelong emotional happiness. But from an evolutionary standpoint, falling in love is essentially an intensive background check. It is an instinct programmed into us by our genes to perform strict quality control on a potential partner's ability to help your genes survive into the next generation. Because if their genes aren't high quality, your combined offspring might not survive. Love is literally the filter. In human beings, love acts as a filter to optimize a very specific biological trade-off. We don't just produce thousands of offspring and hope for the best, like some species do. Instead, we use a high investment strategy. We have fewer children, so we can invest heavily in their physical and cultural preparation. Finding a partner you intensely love ensures you stick together long enough to provide those concentrated, high-quality resources to a smaller number of offspring. And applying this cold biological logic neatly explains so many confusing human behaviors. It proves that our modern relationship anxieties are actually deeply encoded survival tactics. Jealousy, it's just a mechanism to secure and keep someone from stealing your genetic co-investor. The societal fear and pressure around aging, rooted in a harsh evolutionary reality about visual cues for fertility. But my absolute favorite is the muse exception. We don't generally fall madly, truly in love with famous movie stars or untouchable muses. Why? Because our instincts are ruthlessly pragmatic. They aren't fooled by illusions that cannot realistically lead to genetic reproduction. Let's explore Part 4, the paradox of homosexual love. If love is for reproduction, how does this survive? This right here is the million-dollar question. Since homosexual love ostensibly represents the end of the genetic line for its carriers, Darwinian logic suggests it should have been bred out of the population over thousands of years. If love is just a tool to make babies, why does this form of love exist at all? And why is it so enduring? Yet research shows approximately 10% of the population identifies as homosexual. 10%. That is a massive, highly statistically significant number.
It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is a sustained genetic trait, absolutely not an anomaly or some purely cultural invention.
So, to solve this paradox, we have to remember our baseline rule from the very beginning of this explainer. Genes can survive inside the bodies of your close relatives, not just in your direct children. Your genes genuinely do not care if they ride into the future in a biological child or in a biological nephew, just as long as they get there. Which brings us to part 5, the social warrior hypothesis. This is kin selection and parental altruism in action. This step-by-step mechanism shows how a homosexual individual acts as a social warrior for their family. By not spending decades of time and immense resources raising a traditional family, they have significantly more bandwidth for self-development, building alliances, and socioeconomic ascension. They climb the ladder. Then, those direct and indirect benefits naturally flow down to their blood relatives, their siblings and nephews who carry the exact same identical genes. They pave the way in a competitive society to ensure their shared family genes have a dramatically higher chance of survival. What's really incredible here is that the environment actually activates these specific genes. This is called environmental modulation. When a family unit is under stress, maybe there are too many siblings, or extreme poverty, or an overcrowded society causing stress on the parents, the environment triggers this genetic predisposition. The family needs an indirect evolutionary advantage to survive. So biology essentially creates a social warrior to provide external support. This is also exactly why homosexual-only children are statistically rarer than average. If there are no siblings genes to protect, the social warrior mechanism isn't evolutionarily advantageous to activate. Finally, our conclusion: balancing the biological with the cultural. The source material is very careful to emphasize that we aren't just biological robots. While we are undeniably driven by powerful, subconscious genetic algorithms whispering in our ears, our human experience of love is also beautifully and vastly shaped by our culture, our society, and our personal histories. Biology might pour the foundation, but we decorate the house. So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder the next time you feel those undeniable butterflies in your stomach. Are you really making a conscious choice? Or is your DNA simply recognizing a profitable merger? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you think you know.